Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And with the temp ban list quickly coming to a close, there's a couple questions that I felt I had about the coming format. Like, for example, will Morphrost Chimera going back to 3 be an auto-include in every deck that involves Morphrost come Sunstrike? Or has the semi-limit really affected the deck as a whole? And with my knowledge being solely creative and theoretical, I'm not really so sure. So, I'm wanting to ask a trusted person in the competitive community who knows a lot more than I do about this topic. So, with me today, I have invited Perky, the community's premier Morphrost expert, to help me answer some of those questions and also be able to give me some insight and input on this topic as a whole. And just a quick side note before we get started, I did want to say that the audio for Perky's side is just a little bit messed up on like the first tiny bit of the question, of just like the first question. I did catch that like right away, but not fast enough, and because of that, I've been trying so hard to get that as edited as best as I could so it doesn't sound horrible. So this is why this has taken as a little bit longer than I'd have liked to release, just because I've been trying so hard to not have that audio be super messed up. But, you know, thank you so much, and please enjoy the video. So, honestly, first things first, yeah, I guess the first real question I really had was, like, how do you feel like this list of just cutting Morphrost down to 2 really affected, like, the whole deck for Morphrost?
Gotcha, yeah. So going to 2 is interesting because the deck can still do everything that it wants to do, but it kind of cuts down the ceiling of the deck. So there was, and I'm going to refer to my run in Worlds a lot here probably, because I've not played the last 2 premieres. Worlds was the last time I played, and obviously was the highest placing Morphrost player. There was a couple games during Worlds where I would be able to get out all 3 Chimera, and the advantage off of 3 draws. Well, if you have the Morphrost to discard, the advantage to discard, the advantage off of those draws and then the special cast is just insane. So the hitting the 3rd Chimera it's not like it kills the deck, but it definitely does something. The other thing to consider, though, is Morphrost. There was, 2 Morphrosts in the top 16, I want to say. And I know there was at least 2 Hermes as well. It was Y Rebellion and MG. So Morphrost and Hermes were the two of the 4 top 16 decks. And Morphrost was kind of looked at as like the weaker of the 2. So it kind of got like the lightest hit, which was only the Chimera. But yeah, overall, I mean, the deck is obviously still playable. I mean, 6 just won the last premiere with Morphrost deck, so kind of just takes down the ceiling. It's nothing too crazy. Yeah, and I mean, there's other things that you can fill in that slot, like 6's list. If you go look at it, the Cryoling package is in there. That fits really well with Morphrost still. So it's the lists. I think it. I don't know. I don't want to say it could have been more harsh, but I think now, after looking at the last 2 premieres, it is kind of clear that Morphrost is one of the better decks to be playing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, with how Morphrost has been, like, pretty consistent with Chimera's release, it really did feel like that kind of just put Morphrost all together. And, I remember, like, back when Morphrost was just like maybe a little engine, a tiny little engine to just put in decks. And honestly, like, I also enjoy being able to do that too. That was pretty interesting, yeah. But like, and I know the deck that I was originally planning on bringing to the last premiere, but I ended up not being able to attend. I remember the deck that you had helped build me, which was the like toolbox engine for Frost, like the Frostbox deck, and it had like a small little Morphrost engine in it. A lot of people also still look at maybe adding it as like a little engine, like a little tiny package. How do you feel like it really affected the ability to play Morphrost as like a splashable engine into other Frost decks?
Yeah, it's definitely something you can still do. I mean, the whole engine thought, it kind of started back in, what was that? Probably like Moonrise era when Scorp came out, because you could still play three Lycan at the time, and then you'd play the Scorp and the Bat. And it was just a way that you could, get a couple bodies on board and have a piece of removal. And it was very consistent because you had all three Lycan. Once there was that, what, weird ban list where Bat got hit to one,
Mm-hmm.
and then Morphrost fell off the face of the earth. And then like right after that, there was the fixed ban list where Bat went back to three and Lycan went to one. I think that was really the point that the quote unquote like package or engine kind of stopped being played, and it was because of Lycan specifically. Only having the one Lycan, not as consistent to get it or to find it to then get into your other pieces. So kind of weird at that point. However, Chimera still makes it somewhat doable. Just because you can discard any Morphrost name. And when you're running like that package, you've got the one Lycan, you're probably on one Bat, maybe one Scorp and two Chimera. So you've got five names there after the Chimera hit. And, that's enough to where, like, even if you don't see the Lycan, maybe you see double Chimera, that's still a five on board and then a draw or an extra draw. So we've kind of got to the point like where it can be played as a package again. Probably not as good as it was back when Lycan was at three in like early or in Moonrise era. But it's definitely something you can do, and I think like the list that you've been playing, that Frostbox decks that you were talking about, stuff like Six's deck, like there's a lot of different options, and Frost is just very versatile. There's so many things you can do in Frost, so it kind of just lets that little package or engine work.
Yeah, I really think it's interesting, and I was like, one of the questions I really was like wanting to figure out was like, going post Sunstrike. A lot of the hits on the temp ban list, I feel like, minus Chimera. I felt like Chimera, like you said, was very tame compared to a lot of the other decks that got hit. But the thing is like with the temp ban list getting reverted back to whatever it was beforehand, and Chimera going back to three afterwards, do you feel like Frost decks would be going back to using three Chimera, or like I guess on both ends, like if you're gonna run it as like a little engine versus like full, I'm assuming definitely full Morphrost you're gonna put it back to three because it's like your best beater. But I was like thinking like, does that one copy really affect that consistency?
Yeah, I think in pure Morphrost, yeah, for sure, you're definitely putting the third Chimera back in. I'll be interested to see like kind of what happens, because I mean, obviously we'll be getting Sunstrike at that point, so like I doubt there's going to be many people even playing Morphrost at that point. But with it back at three in a live stream format, I definitely think you do put the third one back in. And pure, as far as the package goes, that's interesting because I think it depends on like what else you're running with the deck. I think there's definitely a world where you can put in the three, because like I said, even if you draw two of them, you slap down a five, you pitch the other one to draw a card, still pretty good. So even if you're not seeing your Lycan and you're just seeing two other names, I think that's still pretty solid. But like I said, kind of just depends on the space. Like something like your Frostbox list where, you've got a lot of one-ofs that you want in there, just to have the options. Like it might be more important to have one of those options. Like you might want your Catarant instead, to have that healing. So, it kind of just depends on the list.
Yeah, that was kind of like that was kind of what I was thinking, but I just wanted to like hear your thoughts on that as well, because it's like, not being someone who's like like that competitive, I only really look at stuff in that like weird realm of like, theoretically this could work. Like I'm more of a deck builder, so it's like I can come up with the ideas, I can come up with crazy things. I think I built like a Blistrix Hermes deck with Dracodoodle, like a full version, not just, oh, I'm splashing it in my sideboard because I have the 15 card spaces and it'll be funny. Though it did work, it just was not optimized. I did end up building a list that was fully built on that thought process, and I'm just like, does this work? Oh, seems funny. Like me and a couple guys from locals were thinking about that, but it's like, that's the thing, is like I look at a lot of these decks as like a very theoretical like picture of like, this should work, but can that translate to, you know, the competitive scene? So I was like, that's why I wanted to ask some of these questions to someone who is very big in the competitive scene.
Gotcha. Yeah. Um,
No, other than that, I honestly I think that's all that I really had planned, because I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to like figure out. But honestly, like with Morphrost getting the least hit on the Sunstrike ban list, on this temp ban list, I really feel like it was the only deck that honestly can just go back to its original form pretty easily. But I feel like if one final, I guess, like closing question, if you were to take this temp ban list and make parts of it, you know, more permanent going forward, do you feel like a Chimera hit to 2 is something that we could see in the future? Or do you feel like that it just doesn't really matter, and it just, you know, can be put back to 3 and not get hit in like a whatever post Sunstrike ban list would be?
yeah, that's interesting. I honestly, like, it kind of depends, because I think whenever Sunstrike comes out, I think everything's going to change. For one, like, obviously, like, everyone's kind of dooming Moth right now and thinks it's going to be terrible, and it might be. I don't really think Morphrost, even with 3 Chimera, can even compete with some of these Sunstrike decks in their current form. So I really think it depends on, you know, what happens in the first, you know, few premieres, and, you know, kind of what the first Sunstrike list looks like, because that, I think that'll truthfully tell me, um, you know, what older decks might come back. Morphrost is kind of like that like boogeyman that, you know, in a, you know, not a super, you know, high powered meta, it's always going to be around in some capacity. But like Solar, for example, like, you know, depending on what happens,
Oh yeah,
Sunstrike cards like Solar comes back and they get what, Nova Core back to 3,
yeah.
or Hermes, you know, they get the Aviolith back to 3, or Fish get base Feroz. Like, I'm kind of interested to see, like, you know, what hits happen when Sunstrike starts, and then, you know, what happens after those hits with those older, you know, Worlds format decks. Um, yeah, I think there's just a lot to theorize about there, but
Yeah.
I mean,
It,
I think Chimera, even like if it wasn't a Tim thing, I think as of right now, Chimera could come back to 3 and not really do anything when Sunstrike comes out. But we'll definitely have to see past that.
oh, yeah. I definitely can agree with that. I feel like everything that else got hit on this list is something that would definitely change versus like Morphrost. And I feel bad to say it because I like Morphrost a lot. It was the deck that actually got me started in the game. It was a Morphrost Cryo Scorch, so I always hold that very close to heart there.
Yeah, those two have fit together pretty well since the beginning.
Yeah. But thank you so much for being able to take the time to answer some of these questions. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. If you ever want to chat some more, let me know.
Definitely.